Hello everyone, JavaMentor.net here. Let's learn what is singular responsibility principle, at least basics of that principle. So I created one book reader that will read us a book from some file. This is the CSV file, which means comma separated value. And as you can see, this is the ISBN and then comma, then the title of the book, then comma, author ID, and then the year of publishing at the end. Now the thing is, some data are corrupted, as you can see here. So we want to read only books that are written recently in the last 120 years, let's say. And for that purpose, I inserted this if year of publishing greater than 1900, but I will explain you everything. So this is basically our book reader, and it has one method read, which accepts the parameter where the file is located, and our book has only some attributes. We can ignore everything else, basically just attributes and getters and setters, and this is the main part. So we are creating buffered reader. We already learned about this. We are reading through the file line by line with the while loop, like we learned before. Then this is a new part for you probably. This string class has a method split, which accepts one parameter, and we are basically splitting one line. The limiter is this comma. So instead of one string, we want to get array of strings. One part is before the comma, then the next is after the comma, then the next is after the next comma, and so on and so on. Then we want to create book, and then set ISBN is first part. As you can see here, the title is second part. So yeah, the title is second part. Then we are reading, we don't care about author ID for now. We are reading year of publishing, that's a fourth part. And this is also a novelty for you. So there is basically one static method inside this integer wrap class. ParseInt, you pass string as a parameter. As you can see, string is a parameter of this method, and it will transform you that string into small int. And then we only want to add this list of books only if our year is published recently. So only if our book is published recently, only then set year of publishing and add that book. Yeah, I agree, this is this year of publishing is dummy like this. We will learn about local dates, local date time in the next few videos. So, but for now, important thing is to learn about single responsibility, and then at the end just read the next line, and that's it. Let's just go fast through the debugger, and then I'll tell you what's the main problem in this code. So this is everything fine. Line is our first line, so we enter while loop. Line will be splitted to one array, where every element of array is what was between commas, and then everything is okay. Year of publishing is some normal year. We enter this if part, set year of publishing, add book to our books list. So our books list now contains one book. The same happens with the second book because it has proper year of publishing. And then with the third book, as you can see, third book has corrupted year of publishing, right? Which means we won't enter this part. We won't execute those two lines. We will skip this if part, which means that that third book won't be inside our books, as you can see. Sorry, as you can see here. And of course, the last time line is null because there are no more elements in our file and we are returning two books. That was what we wanted to create. But what's the problem? If something here doesn't work, let's say you wrote this code and then your manager is calling you on the phone and he told you, hey mate, that read method inside book reader, something is wrong. I'm not getting the books that that I expected to get. Do you think that maybe validating is not good? That you're publishing, maybe it's something regarding that, and you're not sure, because this method is working two things. Thing number one is a reading from the file, and thing number two, it's doing validation. So this is some very simple validation, but you can imagine some more complex validation, like, I don't know, you can just imagine some validation that has 10, 15 lines or something like that. Or for example, can you imagine that you need to read from a file, from the CSV file, and then write into the Excel file, right? So maybe you want to do something like this, transform, and then since you need to write inside Excel file, right, you don't need return value, and now here you have books, and then here writing inside Excel. But that's also not good, because if I will not write the code for writing the Excel, it's not the point, but you can imagine 15 lines writing to the Excel. And then if something doesn't work, you're not sure. Is it validation? Is it reading from file? Or maybe writing into the Excel is wrong? And that's exactly why single responsibility is important. The point is, in this object perspective, class perspective, one class and one method should do one thing. So we should have one method that is reading from file, and we should have separate unit that is doing validation, which means that we need to have some, let's say, validator. Let's create that validator, which is doing something like this: public boolean validate. We can even name it book validator, but never mind, let's proceed. And then we can say something like this: if book get year of publishing is greater than some year, then this book is valid, otherwise it's not valid. And now your validating rule is inside your validator, and it's not anymore inside your book reader. I mean, currently it is, but you can replace this with something like this. You can instantiate your sorry, not book reader, you can instantiate your validator, right? And what you can do is you can say, if validator validate book, if my book is valid, so if the result is true, only then I want to add my books to the books list, right? And we have one parenthesis more here, so I need to delete that. So it's basically, if my book is valid, then add my book to the books. And that's it. If your validation rule changes now, this doesn't change. That's very important. This doesn't change. You need to change this method, right? And if someone asks you, are you sure that your validation is working properly? Well, you can tell him, hey, you can try validator independently, totally independently out of the book reader. Just call that validate method with some book, and you will get the result, right? So this book might have, let's say, set year of publishing. So now this should return false. This should return true. If actually this this will return false as well, but this should return true. And you can test this validator in isolation from the file manipulation. And you may wonder, well, can't we have a validate method inside the book? And that's true, but that's because our example is so simple and dummy, because I tried to create some example that is easy to understand and good for presentation. But if you imagine that you really need to write those books into the Excel, well, then you will probably need a new class that is called Excel Writer, and then that Excel Writer will have some method called write to the Excel or something like that. Since it's called Excel Writer, it's enough to be called write, and you need to pass a list of books, which books to write, and then you can do writing here, right? You don't want to do Excel writing here inside this method, because again, if you do it this way, if someone asks you, hey, are you sure that your Excel writer is working properly? You can tell him, yeah, you can try it independently. Just create new Excel writer this way, and pass some books, and you will see that it works properly or it doesn't work properly. So you are in this way, you're doing nothing regarding reading from the CSV file. You're only passing some objects, some books, and you're writing those to Excel. So the whole point, just to summarize, the whole point of a single responsibility principle: one unit has one responsibility. In our case, unit is class or a method. You don't want to put multiple responsibilities inside the same method or inside the same class. Or if you want to have multiple methods inside the same class, those methods should be related somehow. So let's say all of those methods are meant for, I don't know, writing to Excel. So you can have multiple methods that are writing to Excel, but you don't want to have multiple methods inside the same class, and one of them is validating books, one of them is writing to Excel, the third one is, I don't know, calling some external service or something like that. And if you follow best practices while writing the code, and following single responsibility principle is a best practice, your code will be much easier to debug, much easier to maintain, and much easier to test. And we didn't yet cover what is testing, what are not manually testing, like trying manually if your code works, but really write programmatic tests. We will cover that later, don't worry, but I'm just telling you. Interesting thing to mention is that single responsibility principle is not specific to classes and objects. For example, if you're using Git version control and you want to commit some change, you don't want to put 10 different things in the same commit, because whoever is doing code review of your code will smash you with his hand in your face. He will tell you, hey man, I don't want to spend 3 hours reviewing your code. Please separate this commit in 3 separate commits, and one commit should be one unit. Basically, don't give me a big commits that are not related. So maybe you added 3 endpoints in the same commit. That doesn't make sense. Create one endpoint, commit that one. Create another endpoint, then commit that one, and so on and so on. So the important thing is it's not only specific to the classes and objects, but also not only to version control, but to bunch of other things, and not only in programming, also in your ordinary life. Like if you take a look at your car, engine is doing one thing, but the air condition is doing a different thing, totally different thing. And you can switch air condition, like buy a new one if the old one is broken, and engine can stay intact. You can replace one part and not replace another. Also here in the programming, that's also the case. If your concerns are separated properly, you can replace validator with another validator without your code even noticing. And you'll see in the future how is that done. In the next video, let's learn about dependency injection. See you in the next video.